White space and comments are two aspects of programming that you need to be aware of, especially how they function in your particular programming environment. So let's talk about white space and comments in the C++ world. Now, white space refers to, and this is very complex, right? That white space you see on your page, it's blank spaces between words, it's tabs that cause things to be indented, it's new line characters that you don't see but cause us to start on a new line, it's form feed characters that do this very similar functionality, and then it can be comments. And so let's talk about how we can use white space and comments in C++. Now, when we're talking about white space in C++, very similar to a lot of other programming languages, there must be at least one white space character between keywords, commands, and so forth. Otherwise, the compiler can't figure out where one bit of instruction stops and the next one starts. So keep that in mind. Now, all other white space characters get ignored, and we can do some cool things with that. Notice right here, I'm creating an integer named dog, and this just tells me it's the end of the line, the semicolon, but I put int, that's telling the compiler this is going to be an integer variable, one white space or just one blank space, that is white space there, and then dog. It can easily see that there's two words and it knows what to do with these. Now I can just as easily have indented a little bit for whatever reason to make it more readable or for a certain style or whatever, and then I could have put more than one space between the data type integer and then the variable name dog. Wouldn't bother anybody, wouldn't upset the compiler, everything would be fine. And then when we're talking about arithmetic functions like the equal sign, the plus sign, the minus sign, we can scrunch them all up. We don't need any white space, but if it makes it easier for us to read, for readability purposes, we can add some white space between our arithmetic symbols. Not a problem, any of those will work. So as it turns out, we generally use white space to help us kind of pretty up the code and make it easier to read. Now, comments. Comments is a way for us to input our opinion, our remarks, and our explanations into our code. Now, these are ignored by the compiler. This is kind of like being the average worker that most of us are, right? We're free to give our opinion, remarks, and explanations, and the management, right, they just ignore it. Same thing here. So anytime I'm coding and I'm doing something that's a little bit complex, or I know that when I come back to look at this code in a few months I could get confused here, I can write myself some little notes in here. Now there are two types of comments in C++, and really if you've ever worked in any C language you've already seen these. The first one is the single line comment, and it is simply two slashes, two forward slashes, just like you see right here. And then we can do multiple lines, and it starts with a forward slash and an asterisk, and we stay in comment mode until we see an asterisk followed by a forward slash. So this opens the comment and this closes the comment. Let's look at some quick examples here, and you're going to see these when we actually jump out into the coding environment and write some coded examples up. First of all, with a single line comment, anything that follows those two slashes all the way to the end of the line is treated by the compiler as a comment. In other words, okay, the first part of the line is code, I'll compile that, I'll run it, I'll do stuff with it. Everything past those two slashes, I'm just going to ignore it. Good example. We're creating an integer here called age in our veterinarian's program, int space age. Close it out, put our two comments, everything from the slashes. We don't put two comments, we put two slashes. Everything from there to the end of the line to where we start a new line is treated as a comment. And we've left ourselves a little note here that this integer age is going to hold the animal's age in months, because think about this, people are bringing puppies in and we say, how old is it? 4. Well, it's probably not a 4-year-old puppy, but it could be 4-month-old puppy. So if they bring in a 3-year-old dog, that's a 36-month-old dog. So anyway, that's just one of the oddities about being a veterinarian that might be out there. I don't know if that's for real or not, but boy, it sure sounds good, right? Now let's talk about a multi-line comment or a multiple line comment. And this is where everything between that opening forward slash and asterisk and everything between the asterisk and the closing forward slash is a comment. And this can get somewhat creative. You'll notice here in our code we would put a forward slash, an asterisk, go to the next line, and just type a little message to ourselves. The following code reads and writes to the database. We went to the next line and we closed it out. So all of this information from here all the way down to here, all of this is a comment. So you obviously here you can read some leave some pretty copious notes to yourself inside your code. Now, comments is a way you're going to get beat up. Other nerds will beat you up for either writing too many comments or not putting enough comments. Don't worry about it. Just do what works for you. If I were you, I would err to the side of leaving too many comments. That way when you come back to work on your code a few months later, you can figure out what's going on. Now, you can get pretty creative with this, and I'll just show you an example here. You will see these kind of comments out there a lot of times. And notice that this, in the strictest sense, complies completely. You have a forward slash and an asterisk. We just put another asterisk, another row of asterisks out here, one after another, to make this capture our attention and to break it off from everything else. We put our message, the following code reads and writes to the database. We put another string of asterisks, and then notice this last asterisk and the forward slash satisfies our closing. And so this is a multi-line comment block, and you'll see these all over the place. But that's just kind of some basics on white space and using comments in C++.